What's going on, guys? Joey here. Today we're talking about, let me see if you guys can see that, training the cat back, the round back deadlift, as someone who pioneered the invention, self-created for the world, the cat back deadlift. I feel that I have a particular, I can be a particularly strong authority on this matter. And I know what it feels like. It sucks. It's like having short arms on deadlift. Unfortunately, I got both. I got short arms. I got short arms, and I got look how short that arm is. That is the shortest arm ever. And I got a long torso, so I'm just gonna cause pain during the deadlift. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of perspective, maybe how to program it, maybe how to avoid hurting yourself further, and how you can have some level of enjoyment and be able to thrive even though you were not given the gigalong short torso genetics. Gigalong arms, that is. Deadlifting with a round back is a high cost movement, whether that be sumo or conventional. Usually you're gonna not have as much sumo round back deadlifters. It's mostly gonna come from conventional. It is a high cost movement, meaning your frequency is probably going to have to be lower because it is not only going to tax your posterior chain and your back in a way that may not be as taxed if you maybe had like shorter ligaments in your back to where you couldn't round as much, or shorter torso to where weight is just distributed better, more efficiently for powerlifting. I think most people are probably going to be okay on this matter. Me being an extreme case, I've had to think. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. You are going to be a little bit more prone to injury because there's another moving part, right? If somebody has a straight back when they deadlift, you don't really need to worry about it too much because it's straight. There's not going to be any movement that's going to create potential for injury, right? Maybe you hurt one of the joints in your back, you might pull a muscle, pull a ligament, whatever. The benefit to having a little bit of curvature in the back is that you're going to have better leverage from the ground. Your shoulder joint is going to get pulled a little bit closer to your hip joint, and that's going to allow you to have much better floor speed. Me personally, I feel like I could pull anything off the floor, anything. Like there's just like no limit. But then once I get to about my knee, a little bit over my knee, now I have all this weight and I'm all curled over. I have to use my back muscles to straighten that out. And that was a huge limiting factor. And I have big legs genetically. I just have big legs. I grow muscle on my legs very easily. It's not something I have to even try. If I didn't train legs, I would have bigger legs than like 99% of people. It just is what it is, right? It is my gift. It is also a curse. In that regard, when it comes to the deadlift. Specifically the conventional. On sumo as well, my hands are going to get stuck. So you're going to struggle to straighten out at the top. Talking about myself, not only do I have to overcome, that long torso and that round back, but my arms are short and I have big legs, and that's going to create a lot of friction, which is going to make it even harder. We're just talking disaster, right? We're just talking like short end of every stick. Should have been a bodybuilder. Beltless work is going to be important, because the stronger that you can make your back, the better, the more musculature, the more control you have over your spine. You can delay the point in the lift in which your back is going to round significantly, and you might even be able to prevent it. I can remember a couple pulls that I did, especially on a deadlift bar way back in the day, before any of you watching were born, 5,000 years ago. I could tighten my belt really tight. Back when there was no SBD belt, we had to use prong belts. I used a single prong, I believe, because it was easier to just pull it, put the thing in, clip it over, you're good to go. Pull my belt really tight. Because I'm using a deadlift bar, the bar is going to break the ground like, you know, I don't know, 4 inches, 3 inches higher than a normal Eleiko bar, for example. So now I'm straighter, I'm closer to lockout. I break the bar from the ground. I don't have to worry about unraveling my back so much when I get to the top. I can have somewhat of a normal deadlift. So the deadlift bar for me, I actually don't do this with any of my lifters because none of them have unbelievably giga terrible conventional deadlift leverages. I would just have them do sumo. There's a reason I didn't do sumo, which I could talk about another time. But yeah, for me personally, I use the deadlift bar to build a lot of volume with my deadlift, and I could do it safely, and yeah, it was fine. Later on, I moved to a different approach, talking about lower frequency. I literally wouldn't deadlift during the times of my training when I was going through like very rigorous squat training. If I'm pushing my squats like super hard, I'm just not deadlifting. There are a lot of old programs, very successful old programs, where you actually are practicing the deadlift, but you are not necessarily driving the deadlift the same way that you would drive, you know, your squat, for example. So I just wouldn't deadlift, and then I would practice the deadlift, you know, maybe 5 weeks out. I would introduce some reps, and then I would condense those reps, and I would just keep my RPEs like pretty consistent the entire time. And then I would take a week off, and I would pull something nice meet day. So we just went over squats to build the pull. Another thing too that's very, I think is very important, and it applies to all your lifts, right? It applies to every single lift. You have to accept your disadvantages or do your best to work around them. So for example, it took me a long time as a young lifter to accept that I'm just not built to deadlift. I'm just not. It is what it is. That doesn't mean I can't put up something respectable. And once I figured out, okay, this is the way that I'm going to train and get my deadlift to move forward, I really put a lot of my attention on other areas, because the amount that I would put in on the deadlift, it was like not the same as the amount that I could put out on the squat or the bench. I remember there was one national, I squatted like 677, I believe, or 673 or something. And then I hit like 744 from October to March. November, December, January, February, March. Like, what are we even talking about? And that is those are the types of gains that you can make. Yeah, there's a lot of things that went right for me during that prep. I also was bulking, so it was like super easy. And like I said, genetically at the beginning of the video, I built muscle in my legs super easy. So, you know, it was like a natural thing for me to put on progress like that. But I had to accept that it was going to be harder for me. And I just needed to start treating it like every other lift as opposed to hyper neurotic, like, oh my god, I have my shit deadlift, like I need to fix it, blah blah blah, right? I would shoot for like 10 to 20 keys on the squat, 5 to 10 keys on the bench, and then 5 to 10 keys on the deadlift, and I just said the deadlift is not on the squats level, you know what I mean? Genetically, it's just not. Another thing, hook is probably safer. The reason why I say that is because if you do have a round back when you deadlift and you're pulling mixed, your spine is a very malleable thing. It's very flexible. It can move any kind of which way. It can twist, curl, straighten out, all that. And if you're pulling mixed, You're more likely to develop some kind of an issue just pulling mixed over and over and over and over and over and over versus pulling hook. You can actually give yourself the best pathway or the best pathway for your body to be able to straighten out safely. So hook is probably safer. You're probably going to want to do a lot of your volume in straps. Um, yeah, just a somewhat mildly useful video for those out there who may not have the best leverages, who may be catback boys. I just wanted to give you guys that. If you guys have any other powerlifting topics you want me to cover and you enjoyed this format, let me know. Thank you guys for making it this far. See you in the next one. Peace.